In this video, I'm going to show you how to place the driver's side axle on this Mazda 6. Let's get started. Use a 21mm socket and remove all 5 of your lug nuts and then remove the wheel. Use a 17mm socket and break free the sway bar link nut. This might not remove it, but it'll at least break it free. The nut came off halfway, but it is spinning the entire stud. You can put a 5mm Allen in the center here. However, because we have this vibration damper, I can't use a wrench anywhere and turn the nut while I'm holding the stud. So what I'm going to do is put locking pliers on the back side of the sway bar link. There is an area that you can do this on safely without damaging the boot. You can also use a 17mm wrench, but for me it was a little bit too loose. So I'm going to go with the locking pliers and try this again. Okay, there it is. Vibration damper came off. Let's remove the ABS wire off of the strut. You can use needle nose pliers and pinch it on each side. That's going to squeeze the locking clips. Pull it out, set it aside. There's another retainer on the other side of the strut for the ABS wire. You can pinch this one also, pull it through. Remove the clip that holds the brake hose bracket in place. You can pry it out, grab it with pliers, whatever works best for you. Once you remove it, this should be able to pop through. And once you have it through, slide it out. I recommend removing the axle nut. If you are unable to do this, just be very careful because as the knuckle comes forward, when we undo the lower strut bolts, you could separate the inner CV joint. That's why I prefer to remove it. Use a 32mm socket, remove the axle nut. Make sure it pushes through the hub. Perfect. Use a 24mm wrench on the nut side to hold it and a 21 socket on the bolt side to loosen it up. If you need to do it backwards because the bolt is stuck and you can't loosen it up, just use a 24 socket on the nut side. Do the same on the lower bolt. Tap the bolts out. To be careful of the brake hose on this one. Support the knuckle, and as the knuckle comes down, push the axle through. Make sure no ABS wire or brake hose get pulled. There we go. Pull the axle out. Let this hang like this. The ball joint is maxed out. I still have slack on both of these. Now we have to remove this entire shield here so that we can gain access to underneath the axle so we can pop it out of the transmission. There are several 10mm screws or bolts on the front and push clips that go all along the back. We have to remove all of those. Starting here with a trim tool, pop all the push clips out, just work your way around. Remove the shield. Now you're going to want to stick a pry bar from underneath and pop the axle out. You can use other tools. There are axle poppers, which are basically just giant forks that slide in there. There we go. Now pull the axle up and over and remove it from the transmission. There we go. There's your axle. Grab your new axle and slide it into the transmission. Be very careful of that output shaft seal or the axle seal on the transmission. To line it up with the splines, you're going to have to give it a few twists, and then you can actually use the weight of the axle to tap it in. There we go. That's seated. Double check it visually to make sure it is fully seated, and it is. Yep, the sound changed as well. So bring it down into the knuckle. Let's bring in the shield. It has some tabs on the front that have to slide in underneath this front one. And I have a bolt ready to thread in as soon as the bolt hole lines up. This one right here lines up. This will hold it, prevent it from falling. Now you can start in the rest of them. And install all of the push clips. If any of yours broke, go ahead and replace them so this can be properly secured. There we go. Before sliding the axle back through the hub, I recommend putting some anti-seize on it, just a little bit, thin layer. This will prevent it from getting stuck in the splines in the future if it ever has to be removed again. There we go. Stick the axle through, bring the knuckle up, make sure the splines on the axle line up. If not, spin the hub or the axle. There we go. And now bring the knuckle up into the strut. Have a bolt ready so you can slide it through as soon as it lines up. Remember, they went back to front. There we go. Once the top one is in, you can put the bottom one through. Tap them gently if necessary. Start on the mounting nuts. I'm going to start by tightening the top one. It's going to be easier to hold as I push the knuckle in. These don't have an adjustment, but they do have a little bit of place, so I'm going to hold it in place, tighten up the bolt. Now you can let go, tighten up the bottom one. Now let's torque them. 180 foot-pounds is the torque on these bolts. That's 180 on one. All right, that's both. Reinstall the axle nut, bottom it out. At this point, you want to torque it in 3 different passes. Well, 2. The first pass, you're going to torque it to 100 foot-pounds. Then you're going to want to loosen it 180 degrees, so half a turn. And then you want to tighten it to 200 foot-pounds. To prevent the hub from spinning, I'm going to put a pry bar through the lug studs to hold it. Make sure the pry bar is flat so it doesn't damage the studs. Once again, 100 foot-pounds. That's it right there. Now we're going to loosen it 180 degrees. That was just to seat it. And now we're going to tighten it to 200 foot-pounds. That's it. Take the brake hose, slide it through the cutout here. There's a flat side, a flat spot. You want to make sure you line that up. There we go. Mine's a little rusty, so I have to persuade it. To lock it in, put this clip back in, tap it through. Right up top here, put the ABS wire retainer back onto the strut. On the other side of the knuckle, re-secure the ABS wire on this side as well. Reattach the sway bar link on the strut. And of course, if you had the vibration damper, put that back in place. Start on the mounting nut. Snug it up. 35 foot-pounds is the torque for this. That's it. Let's get the wheel back on. Install all 5 of your lug nuts. Bottom them out in a cross pattern, but also in a cross pattern, you want to torque these to 80 foot-pounds. Once again, 80 foot-pounds in a cross pattern. Double check them all. There you have it. Now go ahead and get yourself in alignment.
When only the best will do, demand TRQ. The only company that lets you view before you do. TRQ is committed to offering the highest quality aftermarket auto parts that are engineered for peace of mind. Thanks for using and viewing with TRQ.